Hello and welcome to Abe's seventh podcast for Abe's complete Star Trek commentary, where we will be discussing the next episode on the Netflix watch list entitled "The Enemy Within." First of all, I just want to say again, thank you to those who have been listening, to my podcast so far. I am, grateful that there is a bit of a listenership out there, and I hope to increase that as time goes by. For those who have kind of thoughts or queries or comments, feel free to contact me at warrior346@yahoo.com by email, or on my Twitter feed at warrior346. To start things off, I do very much enjoy this episode. It allows you to see the yin and the yang of the human psyche, and how there are two sides, or kind of multiple sides, but we do this episode looks at two in particular, which I will get into more as the episode as we progress through the episode. But how there's the strength, the aggression, the lust, the that allows one the confidence, I guess, to for the decision making process, and how that gets tempered by the softer, diplomatic, loving, kind, more tender, side to one's psyche. We get it, not up close and personal look at that, and as always, there has to be some kind of crisis, that happens. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as big of a still a pretty big deal what happens, but there needs to be some kind of external crisis to be dealt with. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a proper Star Trek episode, I suppose. That being, a crew, several crew members trapped on a planet that is very, very cold. That's the summary of the episode. So let's get started and see what the enemy within is, and how the crew of the Enterprise deals with this enemy, as it were. So, as the episode starts, we see Sulu, Kirk, I'm going to call it a Pomeranicorn, because it looks like essentially a Pomeranian with a unicorn horn. So, Pomeranicorn it is. That Sulu's holding together, and Kirk is saying that it gets pretty cold where they are. To 120 degrees below zero, which, as it converting Fahrenheit to Celsius, works out to be about 48. Minus. Make that. Wow, minus 84 degrees Celsius. So I agree with Sulu. That's nippy. Anyway, it's well below freezing, and shortly after that comment, we hear someone fall into some kind of yellow ore, and they cut their hand, and it's a standard protocol. Gets beamed up to the ship so that McCoy can take a look at it. Takes a little longer for him to beam up, and it takes a little longer for him to beam up. And Scotty makes a comment that the uniform needs to be decontaminated, and that something went wrong with the transport, actually like a burnout of some kind. So there may be a damaged circuit. Maybe the ore itself has done something in transit, because it would be in I would say an unknown substance at this stage. Otherwise, the transporter system would have been able to detect it and detect it properly and screen it out. But as has been mentioned in a earlier episode, the system can only scan for what it knows about and can only remove what it's been trained or programmed to remove. So we'll see what the effects of this are. Not too long later, after Scotty has just checked run a few basic diagnostics, nothing too detailed at this point. The captain requests to beam up from the planet's surface. Just after he does so, he kind of stumbles out of the transport chamber, and Scotty. He seems a little disoriented, and so Scotty agrees to kind of help him to sick bay so that he can get checked out. And the captain suggests not leaving, not leaving the transporter unattended, which Scotty does to make sure the captain's okay, because the other officer who was there is going to get some diagnostic equipment of some kind, and the transporter seems to activate entirely on its own, no external influence, because there's no one there to control it. And another Kirk appears. Seems slightly twitchy, but we don't know what his deal is at this point. So now we've got two Kirks, that wandering around the ship. Not quite sure why that happened, but we'll learn that as the episode progresses. So we've got these two Kirks. For the purposes of this podcast, I'll call them Kirk A, being the calm, controlled, peaceful Kirk, if you will, and Kirk B being the Kirk created by the transporter malfunction. So Kirk B has just materialized and initially just kind of orients himself a little bit to being in the transporter room. Then when the transporter technician comes back, he starts to leave, gives him a kind of what the heck you don't talk to me kind of look, and walks off, while Kirk A is being escorted back to his quarters by Scotty so that he can just get some rest. He arrives into his quarters, and Yeoman Rand is there, just after having done some organization of some files, and Kirk orders her to leave so that he can get the rest he needs. Next, we see crewman Fisher, or at least officer who was injured on the planet in sickbay, getting his wounds tended to. And Kirk B wanders in, asks for some alcohol, some Saurian brandy, and after the injured or the now healed crewman leaves, Kirk gets particularly aggressive with McCoy about getting it, and he's got so this is a Kirk who also has got no boundaries. That we can see at this point. He's angry, he's letting his aggression out. And after he gets the brandy, he starts to wander around the ship. This is no doubt his behaviour has no doubt got McCoy a little concerned. And as Kirk B is wandering the ship, he stumbles upon Yeoman Rand's quarters, which he enters without permission. She's not there at this time, thankfully. But one thing that we do know from earlier episodes is that while he would never act on it, he has always had a bit of a thing for Janice Rand, which not too surprising. She's an attractive enough young woman, and I can certainly. But he knows that that's a line that shouldn't be crossed. She's one of his officers, and he's her commander, and that would just not be appropriate. but I do have a feeling that Kirk B is not going to have that same kind of self-restraint, and that is worrying because he's not exactly the weakest man in the world either, and should he choose to do what I would like to call the unthinkable, there's not going to be much that Janice is going to be able to do to protect herself. So, not too long after this, Kirk A has rested from and kind of got himself, pulled himself together. Spock, comes to check on him. McCoy has kind of said, well, has obviously told him about what happened in sickbay, and Kirk's like, I got no clue what you're talking about. I'll let the doctor know you're probably annoyed by this waste of your time because none of that happened. And Spock leaves. Next scene, we see Kirk in what will be another one of his standard outfits. It's a green top, which I like. I like the green with with the gold tinge. I mean, green is my favorite color. But yeah, I like he wears it well. And they walk into the transporter room. Kirk and Spock, and Scotty is there holding the Pomeranicorn, and he reveals that there's that what happened to Kirk. Not that they know that yet, but what's happened to Kirk has happened to this Pomeranicorn. That there's one kind and gentle, peaceful, whatnot, and then there's the other mean and fierce, which is and aggressive and whatnot, which is in a specimen case so that it don't attack nobody. So because of that, and because they can't explain how or why that happened, it's become too dangerous to beam the landing party up. Given how cold it's going to get on the planet, that is not a good thing, and now we have our external crisis. The thing that I don't get is why they just don't send a shuttle down to bring them up. They surely had shuttles on board for those kinds of situations, but maybe that'll get explained later on in the episode. There could be no landing ground close enough or something. We'll see. But they do recognize the danger of beaming up, someone up, where this kind of split or duplicate or something could happen. Would definitely not be good. Next comes the scene that I really don't like, for a number of reasons, but I do understand why it's in there. Janice Rand has returned to her quarters and is, she's starting to relax, after a long day at the office, so to speak. And Kirk B has been waiting there for her, and essentially attacks her and does start to try and force himself on her. She does manage to fight him off to a point where she's managed to open the door to her quarters, and the injured crewman, Fisher I think his name is, just happens to be walking by, and Rand tells her to call Spock to get help me essentially, and after Kirk B, knowing the danger that he's in, chases after him, and just as Fisher is starting to call the alert to what's going on, Kirk B knocks him out. As I said, I understand that I don't like this scene because, quite frankly, I've never understood that that kind of behaviour. That those kinds of activities should only be between consenting adults. I've never understood why one would force themselves on another person, but I do understand the reason for it to be there, to demonstrate, to really demonstrate that the aggression, the lust, and the dark side of the captain's psyche that that's being created by this duplicate or opposite that that's being created to this transporter malfunction. Rand, pardon me. Also, Rand manages to scratch his face, which does become a bit of an identifying mark. A bit later on in the episode, to try and distinguish between the two. But so it's at this point that we find that they're starting to be alerted that this may have happened to the worst of all people, being the captain and Captain Kirk, because he's got complete access to anything and everything. People don't know what's going on, and so he would be able to order people to do whatever, and they wouldn't question it because they trust him. They know him. They've been serving with him for quite some time now. And this is a very dangerous kind of situation for the crew to find themselves in. So after the attack, Spock is confronting Kirk in his quarters, saying that I found this brandy bottle in Rand's quarters, which you demanded from McCoy. And Kirk is like, I still don't know what the heck you're talking about. But let's go to sickbay and let's find out what's going on. Just after that, we see Kirk B appear and with its cut face and hand, make his way into his quarters, and he starts to lick his wounds there, and we get Rand telling Spock and McCoy and Kirk essentially what's happened. And Kirk is like, what? There are no scratches on my face. What are you talking about? This was not me. Look at me. I had nothing to do with with what you experienced. But both Rand and Fisher are quite adamant, that it was you. I know what I saw. I know who hit me. I know who knocked me out. I know who attacked me. Essentially, and Janice is at a bit of a loss to explain why there are no scratches on his face, which is understandable. She doesn't know what's going on. But Spock and Kirk essentially come to the conclusion that there's an imposter of some kind aboard. Whether they've associated it yet with the transporter, I don't think so. Not yet. But I think that they do. But they do understand the danger of what's happened. So Kirk and Spock have joined Scotty in the transporter room to try and determine how the malfunction occurred. And Scotty puts it down to the ore that Fisher beamed up with, kind of covered in, because that's when this all started to occur after his beam up. But in terms of trying to isolate specifically how that damaged the transporter and what needs to be done to repair it, is going to take some time. And what happens to Scotty, during this next bit, he just kind of blends into the background, kind of running his diagnostics or whatever. And Kirk and Spock are, trying to, talking about what to do about the duplicate. That he does need to be captured alive because, well, killing him would be a really bad idea, not knowing what the full effects are of what's happened to Kirk and what needs to be done to, shall I say, correct the situation. But there's also the what to tell the crew. I mean, they need to capture him, but what do they say? Because Spock rightly says that if you tell them everything, and while the captain should trust his crew, don't get me wrong on that point, there is I agree with Spock to a point that he that while the captain does need to put on an air of confidence, an air of, I guess for lack of a better way to phrase it, an air of command, to show that he is less than perfect, in my opinion, is fine. In fact, that would, if I was an officer there, it would inspire me more, because I don't believe in perfection. I always believe that someone has got issues of one form or another, and has got things to things to work towards, to improve, to better themselves. But I do agree that Kirk does need to display confidence, needs to display that he knows what he's doing, that he's in command, in control of the situation. And if he shows any that he's not, that he's starting to lose control, starting to weaken in that respect, I do understand the dangers that that the crew would lose faith in him, and that they would not be as loyal and trustworthy and of him and accepting his command, regardless of what his rank may be. So they agree for now there's going to be a bit of a closed circle who, in terms of those who know exactly what's happened, but that this doppelganger or duplicate does need to be captured. They just put him down to being an imposter at this stage. But he does need to be captured alive so they can try and find out how best to help the captain. Another thing as well is that Kirk is starting to see himself starting to weaken as well. He's starting to notice in himself that he's losing confidence in what he's saying. Well, while he was having this discussion with Spock, there were several things that he wasn't outright saying, Spock, these are your orders, this is what you need to tell the men, this is what they need to do. It was more uncertain. It was they need to make sure they lock their faces to this setting instead of the more confident Spock. You need to make sure that the men lock their faces to this setting. I mean, it's a little hard to describe, but I'm hoping you can tell what I'm trying to convey there with that. And it appears to be because of what's happened with this split, that I'm going to call it. So next we see Kirk on the bridge, giving the announcement to the crew in relation to the imposter, and we get a next scene with Kirk B, and he's while Kirk A is giving his announcement in terms of what you need to do. You need to be on the lookout for this guy. Kirk B really loses it. I'm Captain Kirk. I'm Captain Kirk. And after Kirk A announces that he can be identified by scratches on his face, he goes to, after causing a little bit of anger, destruction in Kirk's quarters, finds some concealer, which Kirk just happened to have in his quarters, and puts it on to remove the scratches from her face, to hide them, and then leaves his quarters. And as he's doing so, the transporter technician Wilson, he takes his phaser and knocks him out. Kirk takes Wilson's phaser and knocks him out, and so he's now armed and dangerous and wandering the ship. And we see Kirk, next we see Kirk A, contacting the landing party to let them know that due to, the issues with the transporter, they're unable to beam them up. Still no answer in terms of why not just send a shuttle down? I mean, come on, people. That was a serious, kind of writing flaw for me with this particular episode, that they could have just sent down a shuttle to bring these people up, given the the damage with the transporter. But I suppose they just needed to enhance the jeopardy that the landing party was in order to make the episode more entertaining. But it was a serious flaw with this particular episode for me. So after reporting how cold it's getting down there, still not dire, but it is getting worse. Kirk and Spock are in a briefing room, kind of discussing the situation. And it gets reported to them that Wilson has been found near the captain's cabin, and that the imposter, Kirk B, knows Wilson's name, knows the layout of the ship. It's how the crew operates and whatnot. And so knowing that, Spock asks the captain, well, if you were him, where would you go to elude a mass search? And this is something that is a recurring theme, that comes up in several different episodes. That engineering is not is not highly populated, which I find to be very, very odd. I mean, the engines are something that would need to be constantly monitored to make sure that they're operating at peak efficiency. And I know that Scotty, being the type of engineer that he is, would should always have someone on duty down there, would never leave it unmanned. And yet, in several episodes, it's engineering that people go to hide, which baffles me. There's a good episode in terms of looking at the psychological effects of different things, but it is a bad episode in terms of plot, because there are so many plot holes in this episode, and there's just two so far that I'm kind of picking up on. That I just don't understand, because going to the engineering levels should essentially be like walking into quite a highly populated room. Hi guys, here I am. But instead, it's walking in the engineering levels is instead kind of like crickets going because there's no one in there. Who cares about the engines? Who cares about making sure the ship is well maintained and operating at peak efficiency? I would also think that there would be some transporter equipment here, or some diagnostic equipment or panels or something where people should be looking at trying to investigate from here what went on, and not just in the transporter room itself, because there's got to be every system would have to be linked down here for maintenance to be able to keep track of them to make sure everything's working. But yeah, I don't know. As I said, just plot holes abound in this one. So Kirk and Spock go to engineering alone to try and flush the Kirk B out. Initially Spock says, shouldn't we get some help? Try and to try and search the area. But Kirk's not. No, you and I need to do this alone. If I'm going to be the captain, then I need to act like it. I need to show it. So they separate to search different parts of engineering, and as Kirk A is wandering around, we see Kirk B is actually hiding on top of some equipment out of general line of sight. Why people don't look up, I don't know, but still. He follows Kirk B. Kirk B was the one on top of the equipment. Sorry, Kirk A is the one who's down, wandering around with Spock. So I'm starting to confuse myself a little bit there. But Kirk B follows Kirk A a little bit till they get to another part. I do see a little bit of a minor blooper with this one in terms of the phaser that he's holding. In the close-up shots, we see it's a standard Type 2 phaser that he took from Fisher. But in the zoomed-out shots, it seems to be more of a smaller version. I don't know, maybe it could just be the version, the version of the episode I'm watching. I don't know, that it just may not be showing properly, but that's just by the by. Anyway, Kirk A is advancing on Kirk B, saying, you can't kill me, you need me. We're part of each other. And Kirk B hesitates in shooting him. And is backing up, but eventually he gets to a point where he says, I don't need you. And just as he's about to shoot Kirk A, Spock comes around the corner and knocks him out with his all too famous nerve pinch. And as he's getting knocked out, Kirk B shoots, and instead of hitting Kirk A, damages some equipment and engineering. And we'll see what kind of effect this has, if anything. But Kirk B has now been captured, and they're now looking into trying to solve the problem. So here we have Kirk A and B Spock and McCoy all in sickbay, discussing the situation. First of all, they agreed that it's too dangerous to give him a tranquilizer, so they agreed to bind him, to secure him for when he regains consciousness so that he doesn't go anywhere. And Kirk is wondering, what's happening to him. He's not as confident as he was. He's losing the power of decision. And Spock actually gives a decent explanation of what's going on. That it's his negative side, his evil side, which he describes as hostility, lust, anger. Gives the captain his strength. Properly controlled and disciplined, gives the captain his strength to do what he needs to do to function as captain. And McCoy's like, while I understand that, you've got your intellect, Captain, you can maintain command with that, but Kirk's like, yeah, for how long? I'm losing, just because I'm smart. I mean, how many if you think about it, how many brainiacs are there out there? People who do have a really good head on their shoulders, who just don't have the, extrovertness, if you will, to stand out in a crowd and say, this is what you need to be doing to resolve the situation you're in. A lot of the time, smartness and intelligence is mocked, is, denigrated, which is a shame in a lot of ways. And so as a result, people are unwilling to step forward, and they become introverts and are unable to voice their thoughts and their opinions and solutions to the problems that are in the environments around them. And this is the situation that the captain is starting to find himself in, is that because he's lost that strength of will, which his negative side gives him, he's not going to be able to make the decisions needed to maintain command. And so somehow they need to find a way to put A and B back together to make Kirk whole. After this discussion, Scotty points out that he found a new problem with the transporter. So that is indicating to me that they were able to screen out the yellow ore, whatever it was that was causing the duplicates in the first place. But now it's the actual transporter circuitry, thanks to the Kirk B's phaser blast, that is that's been damaged in engineering. Once again, who would have thought to look there? But anyway, and so it's going to take some time for that to repair, and while that is being repaired, the crew or the landing party on the planet below are still getting worse and worse in terms of their kind of freezing temperatures. But again, shuttlecraft people, I'm going to harp on this a little bit, and I apologize to my listeners who may find that a little annoying, but still, it would be so much easier just to get a shuttlecraft, to bring them up to save them. But apparently the writers didn't think about that, which I find very odd, because shuttles were the first form of, were among our first forms of space transport in terms of going to and from locations. And yet here in the 23rd century they don't have them anymore, or didn't think to use them. Puzzling. So the situation on the planet is rapidly deteriorating, constantly getting colder. They're using phasers to heat the rocks, and Sulu just makes a call to the ship just to try and see what's taking so long for the repair. And basically they're told to implement survival procedures because there's nothing. They are trying to fix the problem, but it's taking longer than expected for that to happen. This situation's getting quite dire down there, and Kirk is realizing the danger that that he himself is in if they are unable to resolve the situation, both for himself and for his crew. and they need to find a way to resolve this. Otherwise, there's going to be, as I said, tragedy in a lot of different ways. McCoy, all right, we come back to sickbay where Kirk A and B are together, and McCoy is there as well. And Kirk B is, physically not dealing well with the separation, with the split. And it's not until Kirk A comes along and tells him, calm down, use your mind and think, and you'll get to, start to get control of the situation, that he, that he does, calm down. And then, McCoy gets Kirk A drink, and they're talking about the situation and how McCoy agrees with Spock that he needs his negative side to have his confidence, his will to command and to make the tough decisions. This is also giving Kirk a rather unique opportunity that not that no one really has, and that's to see a part of himself that many of us don't like to admit exists. We don't like to think that we have these lustful thoughts. We don't want to think that we have these thoughts of anger or rage or aggression. But the truth is that we need those parts of ourselves in order to have confidence that what we are doing is the right thing. We need the other side, the logic, the intelligence, the compassion to temper that the aggression so that it gets used in appropriate ways. Both sides are vital to to the human experience, human condition, and but it's not easy to look at and to for many people to admit. And so this is giving Kirk a very rare opportunity to understand those sides to himself, because I'm quite sure, and myself included, that it's not something that we think about much, but it is something that is definitely worth a bit of an introspective look in order to just analyze, kind of understand our own selves better and where our emotional weaknesses and strengths lie, and how we can best manage them to become our best selves, and to at least understand ourselves better. So Kirk gets called to the transporter room because they think they've found a way to fix the problem, to essentially sticky tape the problem, and they this is Spock and Scotty, and they decide to send the animal, the Pomeranicorn, through to try and reintegrate him, but apparently it doesn't go so well, and the shock of being reintegrated kills it, which is a real shame, because I think that was a really awesome type animal. It would have been cool to have that running around the captain's feet. But anyway, they and Kirk realizes as well that if the animal can't do it, then this is too dangerous for me. And so what's going to happen? What are we going to do? We can't bring the landing party up. They're going to freeze to death, and there's all kinds of consequences to what's going on, which, if not properly, which again, not good for for the captain, for the captain or the crew. This next part for me is, to be honest with you, a little bit heartbreaking. The captain is in sickbay with Spock and McCoy, and they're both presenting very logical arguments that the reason why the animal died is because it didn't understand what was happening. It was split into two halves and then, rammed back together, and as a result, it died of shock. McCoy is, you can't say that yet. I haven't had a chance to do an autopsy. We need to know specifically what happened before we risk sending the captain through. And Spock says, well, we need to do this because there's people down on the planet that we need to be able to rescue and bring up. And McCoy is like, well, you're just spouting out theories that, because the captain is, for lack of a better way to phrase it, a higher life form capable of greater understanding than that of a base animal, and that and because you live with two halves, half human, half Vulcan, constantly at war with each other. The human side wanting to get out, let his emotions out, to smile, to laugh, to cry, and his Vulcan half, which is keeping that all in check, and keeping him reasonable and measured, and unemotional to a point, is how he's able to survive. And he's claiming that that Kirk has got the same capability, that his intelligence would win out over his fear to allow this to happen, which I've got one bone to pick with, and that's that this transporter issue is not technical but emotional, which I can understand to a point, but also by the very fact that the transporter is a piece of technology that's designed to integrate, to disintegrate and reintegrate matter into energy and then back into matter, that one's emotions shouldn't form part of it at all. It should just be how well they're able to fit the pieces together. The heartbreaking bit for me comes in seeing the captain as broken as we're about to see him, because he's been given two very reasonable, very logical arguments, and he doesn't know what to do. He is lost without his negative side to give him the confidence to say, this is the choice we're going to make. This is what we have to do. This is what we're going to do. It's now, help me make the decision. And Spock actually asks him the question, reluctantly but understandably, are you relinquishing your command, Captain? And Kirk says, no, not yet. I'm not doing it. But he does know that he's losing it. And I can understand that the indecision that the captain is facing. But he does need to make that decision in order to save himself, in order to save the crew, from what otherwise would be certain death. So the captain decides to try and go with both options. He has Spock ready to the transporter to try to reintegrate, try and reintegrate himself, and McCoy to continue investigating the death of the animal. And after this, Kirk A and B are left alone in sickbay, and they're talking, and Kirk A tells Kirk B that we're going to go through the transporter. We have to. There's no time. The crew are dying down there. So as Kirk A is trying to take Kirk B to the transporter room, Kirk B knocks out Kirk A and escapes, switches uniforms with him, and leaves. On his way to the bridge, he runs into Janice Rand, who he is more calm, more measured, not as animalistic, and is giving Janice a basic explanation of what's happened. Kirk B then kind of suggests that they meet in Janice's quarters later, and Janice is a little wary but says, okay, sure, and then Kirk goes off to the bridge. Once on the bridge, he gets told that there's still been no further contact with Sulu, who is almost frozen to death. There's been 2 men are unconscious down there. So Kirk B is ordering them to leave orbit. That the crew on the ground can't be saved, which is very uncharacteristic, and the crew is wondering what the hell. And not too long after, they're sitting there kind of questioning that, Kirk A arrives on the bridge, and we find he didn't steal his uniform, but just stole another one, exactly the same, to try and continue his impostership, if you will. And essentially, they Spock and McCoy agreed to let the captains kind of sort this out between them. And there is a bit of a yet another blooper that comes up during this whole "I want to live, I don't want to go back, I need to be my own person" kind of thing. The scratches, which have been the identifying mark, have always been on the left side of his face. When doing the close-ups here of Kirk B, they're actually on his right side. So again, little blooper. I'm the kind of person who loves to pick up on these things, but ultimately, Kirk A manages to subdue Kirk B, and manages to get him down to the transporter where they agree to they try to reintegrate him, and fortunately, it is successfully done. After the successful reintegration, they beam up the landing party, who are 3/4 icicles by now, but they manage to reheat them, and they do manage to survive. So just to kind of sum up in my kind of final comments here, this has been a real fascinating episode, and one that does raise a lot of really good questions. Who, in terms of what are really the best parts of ourselves? How do we the yin and the yang that of it all, the good, the evil that that helps us be the people that we are, and sometimes how we need to let the evil win out over the good so that we can get to where we need to go career-wise, or in other parts of our lives, so that we can achieve the goals that we want to achieve. But we need the good to temper that, so that we don't negatively affect those around us. And so, I've really, have enjoyed, kind of reviewing this episode, and being able to see, to be able to discuss those, those things with you. Just as an FYI, again, feel free to leave me any feedback on the Apple Store or Spotify, depending on how you're listening to this, or to comment on my Twitter feed at Warrior346. Or send me an email, warrior346@yahoo.com. I would like to know your thoughts and comments on these podcasts, how you feel they're going, if there are ways that I can do them better. Thank you very much for listening. Live long and prosper, and couple. Hello.